and I'm sorry about that. And so I'm going to start.
Fair assumption.
I'm going to start from the start, and then move forward to where we're going. First things first. The Isle of Wight is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. Not bits of it, the whole of it is, all the way leading out to the sea. And you've got to wonder, well, why on earth did we think this was a good idea, and where did we come from? Well, there were three wise men, all of them bald, two of them bearded, one of them in this room, who were a bit worried about a little-known decision that was taken in 2016 to do something European Brexity something or other. There was a decision made then. And if you understand, most of the Isle of Wight's special areas of conservation are underpinned by European law. And the discussion was, well, if we're coming out of Europe, well, how are we going to retain our special conservation statuses? So we had a little think, and Biosphere came out very high on the list of things that we would aspire to do. I should say, none of these three bald, bearded men let me in on the secret of how much work was going to be involved before I undertook it. The Vulcans. Anyway, so to give you an idea of how important actually UNESCO Biosphere Reserve status is, it's underpinned by the United Nations, which the same blokes that go into Sierra Leone and Haiti and all these other things. It was done as a result of the finish of the Second World War in 1945, and UNESCO is part of that series of different organisations that are based within the UN. So this is a global thing. This isn't something that's just around Europe. This is something where there's 700 across the world. And UNESCO specifically is the cultural and science and education side of trying to build peace in this world. So we've got a big mission here now. The Isle of Wight has to build peace on Earth. That's what we're doing. For those of you who haven't sort of come across UNESCO sites before, Britain, in the same way with Europe, we are phenomenally bad at celebrating the fact that we have European designations. But the stones at Stonehenge, for example, or the Giant's Causeway, are held in the same sort of esteem as Machu Picchu in Peru, or the pyramids. You know, it's a case of they really are held on that sort of level. Likewise, geoparks, which are another of the UNESCO series of different designations. Now, for those of you who haven't seen this book, notice that this is from Iran. I did something really stupid. I work within the bounds of the Isle of Wight Council, and I did a Google search for this place, which when I saw it on a documentary looked utterly astonishing. And going on to the actual website in the Isle of Wight Council, came up with red sort of, don't do this, you're going to die, you're going to explode in a ball of death. And I've been waiting for MI5 to lynch me ever since. Hasn't happened yet. I'm hoping because there's councillors in here, I'm not going to get lynched. But it's a case of geopark, like World Heritage Sites, is a designation. And so that's then a case of Biosphere is with those three tranches. So it's of the same esteem as World Heritage Sites, it's of the same esteem as geoparks. So, what is a Biosphere Reserve? One of the things that came up time and time again when I've been talking to community organisations or going to the Hullabaloo, things like this. You're going to put a great big dome over the Isle of Wight. No. Wow, this is the Biosphere then, isn't it? We're going to get a whole series of geodesic domes splashed around the Isle of Wight countryside. And actually these are biomes, not biospheres, although they do have biospheres in them. Anyway. What biospheres are is a recognition by UNESCO for the relationship of people and their local environment, and the way that they move towards doing things in a more sustainable fashion. So I'm trying to give you a breadth of actually how diverse biospheres are. This one is in Madagascar, and this biosphere reserve is broadly based on sustainable fishing. Now, before they were designated a biosphere reserve, they had unsustainable methods of fishing, including dynamite fishing and various other things like that, and they've changed the way that they do stuff. and it's now a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. And they're actually, it's quite a big tourist attraction, and it brings people in. Not dissimilarly, do any of you know the Canaries at all?
Yep.
The Canaries are the most astonishing place. You have to have it in your life. If you go nowhere else, you have to go and see this. Because this, in my mind, this is the moon. This is so alien. It's just wonderful. And Fire is a whole series of volcanoes in the south of Lanzarote. And the endemic biodiversity there, it occurs nowhere else in the world. They have little white crabs that occur in one cave in the whole of the wide of the world. And lizards which only occur on this island and stuff. And I mean, they've made a big touristic play of their volcanoes, and actually Cesar Manrique, who's an artist, one of Picasso's sort of contemporaries, designed all sorts of stuff, and they now cook on the heat of the volcano. It's very, very dramatic. It's a very exciting place. But again, it's a case of celebrating that link of their relationship with the landscape. I mean, if I thought of biosphere reserves, this is the first thing that comes into my mind, is the Maldives. You know, very, very low-lying islands, tropical paradise. But believe it or not, you've got a 5-star hotel there, and a 3-star hotel there. Guys swimming with manta ray. It's a case of, again, they've trying to meet the needs of the touristic pressures, while at the same time conserving and enhancing their fantastic landscape. So, then you move to the Isle of Wight. Welcome to August bank holiday in Sandown Bay. I'm just thinking, hang on a minute.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Really? Biosphere Reserve? Really?
It's Sandown, it's paradise.
I'm not going to dispute
It's
that.
my new good books now, Ian. Yeah, just look at the Sandown.
But it's a case of, the Isle of Wight has 140,000 people living here. And yet, with those 140,000 people living here, we've got astonishing landscape. I mean, not just nice, it's astonishing landscape. We've got woodlands that rival anywhere in Britain for how smashing they are. We don't have large quantities of deer on the island. We've got some deer parks, but we don't have wild roaming deer. And as a result, the understory in our woodlands is like nowhere else in Britain. So we've got dormice, we've got bats, we've got red squirrels and all sorts. And I've been talking about this relationship between people and the environment. And I mean, I know we've got an area of outstanding natural beauty. You have to put the natural in inverted commas, because we've managed this landscape for 5,000 years. You know, it's not been a natural landscape in all that time. But actually, what we do in that landscape is really quite sustainable. And from a biodiversity point of view, we are something really quite special. Our bizarre geology, we've got all sorts of, I mean, I don't know whether you know the geology of the landscape, but it's completely twisted. So we've got chalk downlands intermixed with sand and clay and all sorts. And so we get a really diverse landscape. And it gives us our wonderful biodiversity. Now I'm going to get this right. Black-tailed godwit, yeah? 6-spot burnet moth. Glanville fritillary, which is a famous butterfly on the southwest coast of the island. Red squirrels and pyramidal orchids. But there's all sorts of other species that are actually either very rare in Britain or only occur on the Isle of Wight in Britain. Broom rape and wood calamint and things like that, which occur only here. Because the island is at that sort of nexus point in the world where stuff coming south, that's about as far as it gets, and stuff going north, that's about as far as it gets. And so we got it all. So, since June 2016, we have been a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. And I was lucky enough to go to Paris when we were given the status. And quite literally, I sat in a room with the Russian Federation to my left, the Koreans to my right, with the North Koreans to their right, which I thought was quite interesting. Over there was the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Kenyans, the Austrians in full lederhosen, which is mental. You had Philippines, you had also, it was a genuinely global experience. I got chatting to a lady boy from Thailand, which I was not expecting, which was quite an interesting experience. It's a global phenomenon. And so from where we're looking, it looks a bit of a mess, but the whole of the Isle of Wight, all the way to this outside line, is the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. So what that means is all of the island is Biosphere Reserve, obviously, but there's 3 different zones. There's your core zone, your buffer zone, and your transition zone. And the differences between the 3 are the core zone is all your best bits, the bits that are highly protected and surrounded by other stuff that is highly protected. Your buffer zone, bizarrely for us, is actually our most highly protected sites, but they're not surrounded by highly protected sites. So this, for example, is a special area of, an SPA, a special protection area for terns, marine conservation zones, special areas of conservation, but then we've got special sites of scientific interest intermixed with all of this. But actually, if you look at that map, the island itself and surrounds, that's sort of 70% of that area is protected in some way for its conservation value. To put us into context for Britain, as I've said before, Britain's not particularly good at adopting all these sorts of European and international things. But we're one of only 6 biosphere reserves in Britain. 7 if you include the Isle of Man, and they are always keen to tell you that they are not part of Britain, they're not part of the United Kingdom, they're only just part of the British Isles if you push them at it. Because they're an independent governed state. But we all get together and have chinwags about how to do things better. But, it's a case of there's not very many of them across Britain. And so from a unique selling point of view, when you're looking at what are the benefits for the Isle of Wight with regards to UNESCO Biosphere status, well, you can look at it from a touristic point of view. So the Canaries make a big play on the fact that, if you're sat in the Canaries, you're likely to be eating food made, grown, fostered within a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. And if you look on the Fuerteventura website, it's the 3rd thing they talk about. So it globally it can be quite a big thing. And certainly the Spanish, the Germans, the French make a big play on it as a real big gold star for their landscape. Hotels.com, you can even search for UNESCO Biosphere Reserves as to where you go on your holiday, which I thought was interesting. Some of the other biosphere reserves, this just happens to be one of our closest colleagues in Diffie in West Wales. Basically, their goods and services are promoted as biosphere products, and they're being sold in London as biosphere products, which could be a good thing. For us, Mardi Gras last year and the year before were, if you like, our flagship events, and it is a case that Biosphere could be one of these big things that draw people together. And we're hoping that Hullabaloo's going to do something with Biosphere this year. We're hoping that the Isle of Wight Day might do something with Biosphere this year. Visit Isle of Wight want to do everything with Biosphere this year. So it's a case of it could be something really quite special. The Canadians, our Canadian colleagues, they do entire film and food festivals based purely on the biosphere. So there's lots of opportunities. Rumbling now. Okay, so with Biosphere, because it's a United Nations programme of work, the United Nations have 17 what are known as Sustainable Development Goals. These are what the United Nations, through discussions of biospheres, with World Heritage Sites, and with heads of state, have come up with as their 17 core themes that they want to push if they're going to make the world a more sustainable place. And bear in mind, I am talking, this is a global step forwards. Believe it or not, these things which are, these are hot off the press. They're going to Davros next week. I saw a video vlog thing with Tony Blair, and I wanted to throw tomatoes at that. But it was, he was talking about world peace, and he really wanted to hit him around the head because so it's a case of world leaders and previous world leaders are looking at sustainability, really looking forwards, and these are the agreed 17, if you like, big strategic themes. And from an Isle of Wight biosphere point of view, a number of them sort of pop out quickly as to where we can do good works. Health and well-being, education, clean water, affordable energy, sustainable communities, sustainable cities, sensible use of materials, climate action, our coastline, our seas, and the one that obviously A1B has the most successes with are conservation on land. Some things are a bit outside of my frame of reference, and that's just because I haven't dealt with it before, sort of getting rid of poverty and getting rid of hunger. I mean, that's more sort of malnutrition than hunger, so it could be obesity and things. But it's a case of, these are big asks. And part of that programme of work is also, this is sort of hot on the heels of David Attenborough today going, we've got to sort this out. The end of the world is nigh if we don't sort this out. But the UN and we don't take that. It's a case of, we can do good stuff, and we can work towards good things. So ACT Now is a whole programme of work which is how to do things better. So sustainable travel, shorter showers, local food, all that sort of stuff. And we're working with the Isle of Wight Shade Makers, which are a carnival organisation, and they are very much involved with the hullabaloo. And we're based in Branston, and we've got barns full of their stuff, which is fantastic. And they're working with Platform One and a lady called Naya to create a whole series of songs that we're going to go into primary schools and secondary schools to learn to sing. And again, it's looking at themes that are, if you're looking at sustainability, it's giving, there are actions that we can actually do. So it's using fewer single-use plastics, or making sure that you use stuff until it's completely knackered, or recycling everything you can. It's all those sorts of things that environmentalists have been sort of beating on that drum for decades, and it's trying to really push that into motion. And with a lot of the UN and the Sustainable Development Goals pushing forwards in the same direction, it's a case of it's now, act now type stuff. Last one. So, what do we need from you? And we do need stuff from you. I cannot do sustainable development on my Todd. I sit in a cold room in Branston Farm on my own. I can be as sustainable as I like in there. It's going to make no difference to anybody else. So I would like to see you guys getting involved with the Act Now campaign and helping us. So whether it's a case of taking your bags for life to Morrison's when you go, or making sure you do put your recycling out on a Thursday, or doing all there's loads of stuff that we can do. The other thing is, I have to report to UNESCO every 5 years so that we keep UNESCO Biosphere status. And I can go back to UNESCO and say we've done lots of good stuff, because the A1B will do good stuff, and we'll do good stuff with our partners, and we'll do good stuff through down to the coast and all sorts of things like this. But that sort of misses what you're doing, which is also good stuff, and that should be reported back to UNESCO. And to me, it sort of seems this is our opportunity to actually make a great big noise on a global stage, that actually this little parochial backwater off the south coast of England, which is often forgot even by people in Hampshire, that we're doing splendid stuff, and we're being recognised for the splendid stuff that we're doing. So yeah, tell us what you're up to. And the final thing is, we're going to have to spend money in some way or other to get all these sorts of things done. So, gives you money.
So that's why we're here.
But it is a case of, we can't do programmes of work together if there isn't a budget to do it. So, A&B will fund stuff. We'll go and try and fund money for there. We'll go try and get money from Heritage Lottery. We'll try and get money from Big Lottery. We'll try and get it from the People's Postcode. All these sorts of things. That's sort of what we do as the A&B, is try and find pots of money to do good stuff. But we can't do it on our own. We can't do it in isolation, because again, I'm sat on my own in a small office on a cold farm in the middle of nowhere. And I'm open to questions, and I'm aware that I'm not sure I've told you everything. I'm not even sure I understand everything.
How do other biospheres get their money?
Okay, so it all depends on where you are in the world.
Right.
So, the other biospheres in Britain, Brighton and Lewis Downs is funded by the local authority. It is effectively not dissimilar to Jim Forster's role. So they have a biosphere officer who is their sustainability officer. If you go to North Devon, They are very academic in what they do. The chap, while he is paid for through the local authority, he is funded through research grants at universities. So he's very much focused on university projects. The Welsh Assembly pay for the Duffy, West Wales Biosphere. Dumfries and Galloway, they are all government workers as well, local authority workers. Galloway and Southern Ayrshire, they have one full-time equivalent who is funded through a charity. But to give you an idea, the population of Wester Ross, which is at the very, very north, the Highlands, their total population over an area 4 times the size of the Isle of Wight is 2,000 people.
I lived there for a while.
It's a stunning Highlands, and the photos they send me, I want to throw at the wall because it's just amazing. But at the same token, there's nobody there. The Isle of Man government funds their biosphere, so it's an actual government. So it's through DEFRA, effectively through their version of DEFRA. We all do it differently. If you go to Spain, again, it's sometimes done through waste management. It's sometimes done through the local authorities. It's sometimes done through charities. The Germans seem the most organised. They form their own sort of, effectively, de facto national parks through their biosphere. It's all higgledy-piggledy. I don't know how the Russians did it. I was sat next to them for a while.